So, is anybody willing to take notes? It's not super easy to take notes and try to direct the meeting at the same time or talk, really. Anyone?
I mean, I can do it. Is there a doc that we're using?
Yeah. So in the issue, yeah. So it's just there, and then you would probably stuff things down here somewhere.
Okay.
So hi, welcome to the tooling group meeting. We are on YouTube. Yay. So the first thing, I see an attendee. Okay, let's see. The first thing on the agenda is RimRaf stuff. And so to recap, where we're at is we want to essentially fold it in RimRaf into core. Given some of the issues around trying to implement that at the C++ level, we think it's probably best to just do it in JavaScript. And so from there, we could essentially copy and paste some portion of RimRaf into the FS library. And we would need to, we would probably want to leave some of it out. And so the stuff we want to leave out includes glob, the glob behavior, because with the userland RimRef module, what you can do is you give it like a glob spec and you can tell it to just zap everything, right? That matches. And we don't need to do that. We don't need a glob implementation in core. Though, I don't know, that's another problem. So that's kind of where we're at. But also, Raphael just commented a minute ago about, hey, but what about I want to port the full shutil module. So, and so shutil is Python. It's in Python standard library. It provides some more higher level file operations like a RimRaf. It'll copy an entire tree, a directory tree. It does a whole bunch of stuff that I haven't actually used, but it's actually not that much.
So at least, even if we do it, incrementally, let's, claim the shutil namespace and call our implementation rm-tree because it's not RimRaf because it doesn't glob. Try to make so there was a debate. It started on Twitter about bespoke APIs versus more standardized things, and I think that's like a great idea. Although RimRaf, the npm module is great, but starting to collect all those modules and like making a hodgepodge of modules in core, that's gonna bring us the wrath of the small core guys. If we can come and say like, well, yeah, look at this, it's stable, it's somebody designed it at some point, people are using it, we're copying it, I think that will come over easier.
Right. So are you thinking, so instead of actually trying to monkey with FS Rimder, we would stuff this stuff in a new module then? Yeah.
Yeah.
That might be easier to get. Well, that's going to be easier in some ways and harder in others. I'm just thinking of the issues we faced with the make dir p, but Yeah, but so sure. So yeah,
and even that's a kind of simpler um, implementation because it's like a flag even in negative. That's a
Yeah,
flag.
updating rmdir to start like recursively deleting files seems like a pretty big
Yeah.
change.
Also, it's a non-starter. So even POSIX has RM and RM there, and RM there assumes the directory is empty.
Right.
And even Windows does that, like the same thing. Remove directory assumes the directory is empty. So I'm saying like RimRaf is a new. It's not RM with a flag. It's a new thing.
Are you suggesting that this would be like a new module in lib?
Yeah, I'm saying like let's say we're like the long-term plan is to have CLI tooling, um, maybe even glob later on, and things like copy tree, move, copy file, things like the SHUTL does. So like that's our plan. First item on the menu is RM3, which is a RimRef under the hood, and it has nice like API signature and some history. So this is our plan, and then we can copy. Um,
I mean, I think
Python's unit testing.
sounds reasonable to me. This might be a dumb question. What does shutil stand for?
Shell. I
Oh,
see.
okay. Do you have a link or
So
something?
even Windows calls like this bunch of things. It put it under the shell namespace.
I see. Okay. Oh, perfect.
yeah, and I'm thinking, copy tree, for example, is great for scaffolding tools. You know, hell, I mean, copying a file. So yeah, I think I would like to. Yeah, I would like to see all of this essentially. I don't know about some of these like copy two. That's a nice
Yeah.
name, but at any rate, so no, I think all this stuff is probably worth doing. Is that something we want to try to do incrementally and just kind of reserve this namespace for it, and then start with maybe copy or not rim tree or what have you, and then add more as we go along? Or is that something you think needs to land in one big chunk, or what?
I think the smaller the
I
better,
I
personally.
think it depends on the implementer, like who is actually going to do it. There's somebody who's willing to tackle everything. Fantastic. Somebody only has the bandwidth to do one thing. The group can say like, yeah, that's a goal. That's a real goal of tooling. We like that. But Node is Node. Like it's the no roadmap
Mm-hmm.
platform.
Um, so then the question I had was, when you made that comment, you wrote standard ST file systems. That's in reference to.
To the C++ implementation.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with Chrome's built-in modules or namespaces.
No, sorry, that's a C++ namespace.
Yeah.
It's a part of the C++ 17 standard library that has a couple of those things implemented, but we're not going to have it for 12.
Do we need to worry about built-in modules for this?
Uh,
meaning there's that issue about, well, we want to use this Node.js namespace and put all new modules in this namespace. I can't remember what issue that was.
Yeah, but I think that there's no. I don't think there's an issue with either built-in modules or NPM modules.
Yeah, I don't think that namespace issue ever got resolved.
No.
It's kind of resolved, but nobody brought it. Like nobody actually took action. Like we added broadly, and we added don't report. Like we added stuff to the stdlib without a prefix. So I don't think like that there's a real issue. We need to ask. There's a guy person released who took the npm shutil last published 7 years ago. So we might need to do something about that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'd hate it to block on something like that, but I mean, yeah, we're going to run into those problems.
So there's a process. It's published. We need to, if we want that namespace, we need to make contact with the owner as politely. If he's willing to hand it over, then that's great. If that's abandoned, we can escalate it to npm. And if everything else fails, we can put it in a namespace.
Sorry, is that a package or a namespace on npm?
A package.
Okay.
So then, are you suggesting to just sit on it, or are you suggesting actually do the implementation?
I'm gonna start, claiming stake to that module, and I saw there was a volunteer who's willing to port rimraf, monkey patch rimraf.
I think that was me.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
So assume it's gonna be shutil.
So I thought initially you were saying we would be adding this shutil module to like Node's lib, but okay, so that is where we go. But the npm package would just be to make sure there aren't two things with the same name.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was confused about. I was thinking, well, should we put that implementation on npm or?
No. We just need to claim that name, so that when you do require shutil, it's unambiguous.
Right. Okay. I would volunteer to look into getting that or talking to the author. So.
That'd be great, because I've seen people pushing back when contact was made by people too strongly affiliated with Node Core.
All right.
So I think we have like a path forward here, right? So we're going to create a new module in lib called shutil. We're going to start with rimraf, claim the npm name, and then maybe look into what other functionality from Python's shutil we'd be interested in porting.
That sounds. I'm +1 on that.
Okay.
So where would this work happen then? Do we want to have that discussion in our repo, and then the implementation lives in somebody's fork, or?
The best way, in my experience, is open a PR.
Yeah.
To do some minimal work and open a PR, that's the best way to get reactions, even if it's a work in progress, because people procrastinate on issues and on side forks.
All right.
It probably makes sense maybe to open a separate issue in this repo just to track, like for our own meetings, what's going on with it. And then, yeah, I think a PR in the main repo is a good idea.
Okay, so it sounds like we have some stuff to do there. So is there anything anybody else wants to talk about on the room RAF or SHUtil front?
Hello, everybody. Not directly related, but could have implication. I wanted everybody to know that basically we are with Yao and Bartos right now, working in changing in libuv the way on Windows and only on Windows, Node is dealing with files to gain the performance we don't have today. Basically, what is happening is that we are working to move away from write file, from the common C++ usage that is made today, to go into something which is a create file mapping and gain the performance equally available regardless if Defender is running or not on Windows. So today it should have no impact to the tools or whatsoever, but we are making good progress and making a big push in that direction. We are working in a private repo that you can't see for now, and we are dealing with a lot of things that are still open to be dealt with, which is like the benchmark on everything in every situation. But that move should provide more performance for every file manipulation on Windows and ultimately to this type of new modules. So to give you an overview, and I wanted to give you an heads up, let me share with you some of the number we are reaching out right now.
Wow. All right.
We are far from being done. And from a tooling on an existing project perspective, what we are going to propose is to have a hidden switch from a pass, a variable, or a system variable, or something that would disengage the new way of dealing with files, so that the current way would be there still for a few iterations into the libuv platform, so that if somebody is kind of hit very hard with a difference in performance with file management in an existing project, it would still be possible to run Node as it is today. So basically, we want to implement that in a way where it would be by default the way Node would see any files and deal with any file on the Windows platform, but you would have a documented hidden switch or argument, which is part of another discussion we were discussing, so that basically if your project would be broken by that new increase in speed, that's not common to say that, it would still be possible to fall back. And that's one reason where the remap and other discussion, I'm following it very carefully, because that has to be part of the thinking of the scenario we want to validate everything before we move on in any direction. And if there is any question or comment, I know Raphael was looking into that performance direction in many cases, please do not hesitate to reach to us.
So I'm sorry, I was distracted. So you're comparing libuv with C++, with like the C++ library?
Basically, we're trying to improve what API and how we deal with files on the Windows platform through libuv, so that we can maybe not getting close, but at least closer to the native performance of Linux file systems.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. I know there's a lot of pain, especially around Windows Defender with renames.
It's part of that.
Yeah.
Renames, the moves, create an empty file, and things like that. All those cases are those we are dealing with right now.
I had a different
passing libuv testing. It's almost passed everything in Node. We're still behind in some of the Node benchmark, which is very odd. So that's the things we are working right now.
All right. Well, thank you for letting us know. And
I'm sure. I know that there's the plan is to port it into libuv or
yes.
Yeah. So I'm here representing a couple of other libuv embedders, which will be immensely happy.
I know. So I'm doing a junction.
Yeah.
Can you guys all share your GitHub usernames in the chat just so I can tag people in the notes?
Okay.
all right. So, all right. So, anybody have anything else on that front or RimRef front? So, the next thing then is, and I'm going to talk about this now, is argument parsing. If y'all find that, if you think it is a good idea and that we should add or work to add something around it, then it would be good to have comments. If it's probably better to just drop it, then we can just drop it. But I feel like I've invoked the wrath of the small core crowd a little bit there. So, what do you think?
I think it's only Sam, which I'm chatting with on the other line. I'm here, so I'm biased towards better tooling experience, and I'm like deep into porting from argparse to argparse in Python, but still it's a ridiculously simple and convenient way of doing things. I think just in Node we have 11 implementations of argparsing, like 6 in Python, 2 in JavaScript, and 1 in C++. So it's a universal problem. I think it's worth tackling. Although there's not a huge amount of benefit from having it in core, except for just having it out of the box. And Node's package management is better than Python, definitely better than C++. So the gap is smaller. So I can see the other side of the argument. But still, having something that does, the 80-20 split and just works, I think it's great.
Okay.
That was kind of what we talked about last time, like just something that's better than string split on your own.
Yeah, I'd like to share opinion from very user land, but like what really annoys me is like I'd like to have a better user experience overall, to just like make a simple usage of reading arguments. Or I also brought to you the issue with the reading from standard input, but just this just the minimalistic approach. At least that should be covered in a better API. And because at the end of the day, I get it that it's against the whole philosophy of Node of having a bloated standard library. But at least the very minimal, like that's what I will argue for in the whole debate about argument parsing and also standard input reading.
Did you take a look at the kind of the minimal idea I had for what that would look like? Did you take a look at that in the issue?
Yeah, I was just browsing the issue, but not the minimal. No, not really.
So it's this big wall of text. It says 21 days ago. Here, I'll find that comment. I'll paste it. So where's the chat here? This is the comment, and then down near the bottom there's a list of 4 things, and this is like I was trying to identify what essentially all argument parsing implementations end up doing, no matter how fancy they get or what language they're written in. I mean, maybe I don't want to say that. Maybe I just say this is what it looks like when you are writing an argument parser in Java. To use with Node. And this is kind of like, in my head, this was the minimal functionality that you would need for this to be useful. And so does that sound reasonable? Is there more that could be trimmed off of that? Is there anything else that I'm missing?
That sounds amazing for like a minimum API. I'm just reading right now, so I will totally agree, yeah.
I mean, essentially, what we're trying to get to is you define what you're looking for. Maybe that's a particular option name or like a position, like a positional argument. You define what you're looking for. You run that against the arguments of the program, and it poops out a nicer data structure for you to work with instead of an array with flags like dashes and stuff that you have to map over and trim off. So basically, it's just giving you a nicer data structure to work with, and I think that's all that a lot of people need just for accepting like the bare minimum of, oh, I need to just send this one flag to my program. For example, maybe you weren't writing a CLI program. Maybe you have like a server you're running and you didn't think, oh, I'm going to need to send options to this thing. Well, now you need to. And so something like this would make it easier to just kind of bang that out without having to go and pull down a larger module to deal with it. So I don't know, that's just kind of where I'm everything, even the people that don't need heavy option parsing or a very robust solution can use something like this to just get their arguments in a nice data structure. If you're looking to create a bigger program, a library like a Yargs or something like that, or a Yargs parser, you could build on top of something like this. And so, I mean, I feel like that's kind of that's seems reasonable to me without just like going wild with it.
Chris, I was going to say, I think just getting rid of the having to slice to the second parameter, like you said, is really valuable. This came up at work last week, actually, because all our code samples have this, like, now just argv slice to, and you're good to go. And it just makes for hard to read code. So I think as unopinionated as possible, like, get rid of that. It would be nice, right?
So if you think that's cool, I would encourage you to like just comment in the issue, because I said that and I don't think it was quite received.
I think where people I think are going to argue is like the meaning of like single dash versus double dash, and like single dash with multiple characters, is that like multiple options being set at once? They're just like, people have a million opinions about this kind of thing. So as long as you say like we have no opinions about what you do with the argument. Like, I don't know. Even putting them in an object's a little controversial because you do have the setting multiple options at once. Some people enjoy, and everyone has an opinion. But I don't think anyone disagrees that having to go to the second parameter in an array and having the first two populated by your runtime environment stinks, right?
Right.
Yeah. But even if it is like the same as C, it's not a good argument.
I'm kind of thinking again. Either we do something very, very small, like a default slice 2, or we go full on and swallow yards or copy argparse. So I think it's an either or situation. I don't like. I'm not for inventing the wheel for the 11th time. Either take something really good or do something really, really mean.
I think the problem is where you're going to run into a slippery slope. Like even if you say, "Oh, we're just going to populate the keys of an object," then you're going to run into, well, how does a single dash differ from a double dash? Like if it's a single dash, is it actually multiple keys in an object? And then now you'll have 10 more people come in with 10 more.
Yeah, then you have keyword parameters, and you have positional parameters, and you have keyword parameters that take multiple extra arguments. And like if you look at argparse, there's you can say n args is asterisk, n args is plus, n args is 3. Double dash is a single dash, aliasing. You want override from the environment. Like either you go fully opinionated, or you do slice 2 as a default. Like,
here's an idea out of left field. Well, actually, I don't hate. So slice 2 as a default might be nice, and maybe you're just copy. There's now two things populated on an argv object or something. Another option, like I've been talking more to Daniel Ehrenberg about what might be in the standard modules in V8, and in the standard modules namespace. Like maybe it doesn't make sense in Node, but maybe it makes sense that there's a minimist in standard modules. So, I don't know, worth thinking about. Lots of people agree on minimist. Like it's like meow uses the same as minimist, yargs uses the same as minimist. Like that they're all like, I'd say 75% of the parsers are using something really close to minimist on NPM. You're still going to bump into people arguing against it, though.
So in Node itself, is the argument, so you said that there was like 5 different implementations of parsing arguments in various places. Do they basically all have the same opinions about what arguments look like?
There's not that many. Like my argument is there's not that many deviations. Like if you have a single dash instead of a double dash, it often means that you can be setting multiple variables at once. If you have no dash, it's usually a positional. If you have double dash, it usually is a key value pair.
Yeah, you have implementations that don't have positional and assume that everything that is positional is related to a keyword before that. We have implementations that know comma. We have implementations that know that something is a Boolean, and other that have to get an equal or a colon something. So even within the Node code base and its tooling, there's no real. So we don't. I don't think anybody does the 1- keyword, at least. What was it that used that? I used the tool that used that, and it confused me.
I see that on Mac OS. They use 1-.
GCC, yes, that is.
That's like yargs is like Yargs is, well, Minimist and Yargs like have just spent years trying to come to the best compromise on a bunch of these things. But it's just like the number of interesting arguments around like trivial things like the dash count. It's actually a fairly large space with a lot of opinions.
Oh, and things like -VVVVV. That's also
count. That can count sometimes.
Yeah, count
turns the number 4. Yeah.
So it's an either or situation. Either we deal with everything and take Yargs or Minimist or clone argparse, or we don't do. I think, or we don't do any.
Okay. I mean, I don't see getting wide support for like a very opinionated thing, regardless of what it is.
I'm less skeptical. I don't think it's the. As again, from my experience, people are not against opinions; they're against reasoning. Like you have to give a very good argument why this entire concept should be in core, which is either it covers a huge use case or having it in core gives you some sort of benefit. I'm not sure that opinionated versus unopinionated, because everything in core is super opinionated. You know, callback promises, flags versus arguments, multiple API signatures versus multiple names. So we have everything. We have all sorts of opinions.
How different is Commander from Yargs or Meow or Minimist? I'd be curious. Because maybe you can make the argument like, look at, here's the 6 most popular argument parsers. They're used by a million different libraries, and they're all essentially the same API surface. Like, even if there are a few deviations, like it seems like we've come to some consensus. Like,
yeah, I think that's a very good argument because we're not excluding anyone. Everyone could pick their own other implementation. We're just helping, the poor defenseless CLI developer who just wants to read a couple of arguments. And then what happens? I'm imagining the situation like the project manager comes in and says, yeah, you have to take this argument. And then he comes in and he says, well, you have to negate that argument. And then he comes and says, no, you need to take like a parameter of that argument. And then, the homespun implementation becomes useless. And at that point, it's too late to factor it out and bring in a library. While if SDLib had a library, then no homespun code would be created. And in my opinion, it would be easier to switch between libraries than it is between homespun code and the library.
Maybe an action item then is someone should compare Yargs and Commander and see if there are like what are the semantic differences between the two. Because if you can support both of those parsing engines, that's the vast majority of the CLIs on the registry. I think
I'm gonna say look at Boost and argparse as well.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's CLI looks the same from the outside.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was that list again? Yargs, Commander, Minimist. Sorry.
Boost. It's C++.
Oh, like from C. Yeah. Okay.
And argparse from Python.
Yargs uses Minimist behind the curtain, so you probably just need to look at Yargs, or actually just look at Yargs parser. That's the parser bit.
Okay.
The parser is what matters.
I'll take a look at these things and I'll see if there's something we're forgetting as well.
I'd break Yargs' API in a major to move us towards more consolidation.
But the thing that bothers me about having a more complete implementation like Yargs, Commander, like we're discussing here, is that the core is more than just CLIs, right? And that might be like a big argument for a pushback against having this in core. Like, if it was just pre-catering CLIs, then yes, definitely we need that. But it's not so much more today.
But as a big thing around this whole group, Node is very, very opinionated towards web servicing. We have HTTP, HTTPS, OpenSSH, broadly, lib, everything that's geared towards, that's first-class citizen use case. And what this group is, I think, one of our mandates is to remind everybody that CLI is also a very important citizen. And if we have, Zlib and broadly and the HTTP and HTTP2, putting in a CLI parser.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Won't kill anybody. And again, Boost is a huge thing, and it has CLI parsing. Python does a million things, and it does CLI parsing. Ruby, etc. It's not JavaScript. It's not the language. It's a platform. It needs to do things.
Shoot, my battery's dying. I should have done. I was going to say one thing we should probably do is at least document the behavior of everything too, so that we're working to do some sort of spec and not just kind of doing implementation-based specification.
Yeah. I'll volunteer to go out and take a look and compare how these popular modules handle stuff. So then we can get an idea of what solves the greatest percentage of use cases, right?
Yeah. If there's like major consensus about a lot of things between a lot of modules, we can bring that as an argument and say it's not just an opinion; it's the overwhelming opinion.
I think there's probably more consensus than the argument on GitHub would think. Because I don't think they're the reality is if you go to your command line, you want most of the programs to behave the same. Like you kind of know what you're what you're going to get when you type _. Or
yeah, we can focus on that, like 80%. That is consensus, and then if you want something different, use a third-party library.
Yeah, I think I was looking at the C. What is it? Is it argparse that is the specification? And it does seem like a little lacking compared to what I know people like in yargs. So maybe it's an argument for making an improved, maybe it's an argument for a new specification is my argument.
Is there a least common denominator that can be identified between the major parsers? I guess one of my concerns with the idea of bringing argument parsing into the Node core is, well, for example, Yargs has had quite a few Semver majors lately. So how do you deal with that if argument parsing is in the core? Does my program only work with Node 12 and, it might not work with Node 14? By using an NPM module, basically, I get to choose which version of the argument parsing my program is compatible with. And if I use, the Node variant, then I give up that ability.
So I think that's what the task is, find at least the most mature, or at least most road tested spec, and say the tooling work group will not advocate for changing it for 4 major nodes.
That seems reasonable, unless we find the common denominator stinks, right?
If I may add, the common denominator would have also to be completely platform agnostic.
Yeah.
Yeah. No backslash, no forward slashes, please.
You see where I'm going?
Yes. And don't look at CMD or PowerShell,
I have another pet project. What did I miss? I'm sorry for coming in 30 minutes late. I'm going to do this
about RimRaf.
I missed RimRaf. Did I miss RimRaf discussion already?
It was a good one.
Yeah. Well, I have source maps is my pet one right now. So I'm actually working on a design document that I'm going to float around to a few folks on Node and V8 because I've reached the point on some of the coverage related stuff that I'm doing that I would like better source map support. And it just keeps coming up that stack traces stink in TypeScript and other transpiled languages because of poor source map support in the core. So this I think it'd be my pet project for the next while that I'm really excited about and overlaps with the tooling group. So just wanted to see if anyone else has opinions about that.
I am definitely in favor of that. I've had some conversations with people on Twitter as well that are, like I was talking to Tierney about it the other day. So I'm definitely, I also do a lot of TypeScript on the back end. So yeah, very much.
We had this come up because my new job at Google is basically helping to maintain the public facing Node libraries, which are all TypeScript for the most part. So we've actually been having a bunch of conversations this week around those libraries having poor stack traces, which overlaps with the test coverage stuff I'm wanting to do. And I found a month ago, it turns out there's a source map implementation MIT licensed in the V8 code base that's just never been published as an NPM module. And that's how Chromium itself is doing source maps. So I think there's a pretty good foundation for pulling that into Node.js, which I am excited about.
Sorry, did you say source map support exists in V8?
It doesn't exist. It half exists in V8. You can pass a source map into the isolate, which is being created in Node already, and it will be attached to the source code that's being kicked around inside of V8. But the only source map parser, I believe, is a JavaScript implementation that is in the V8 code base, but only gets loaded if you're running the inspector. So it's at least partially implemented. So because the stack traces actually already have line numbers in them before Node.js catches them. So you'd actually kind of want to do it before you even output the stack trace. You'd want to be applying the source map. And then Node.js actually adds its own content onto the exception, which is where your exception has the little snippet of code that shows you where the exception occurred in the code base. That is added by Node, but the actual line position of the exception is added by V8. So you kind of need source map support in both places to get a clean stack trace. And then there's the question: do you show both line numbers? Like, do you want to know the original source position and the source position that happened in the transpiled code? Do you actually maybe have a link to where you would find the non-transpiled code if you haven't shipped the original source in your module? Like, there's a bunch of interesting design problems.
A design problem is, why don't you just use JavaScript?
And I think the ship sailed. Like, apparently, apparently 50% of people are writing TypeScript at this point. Like, it's just incredibly popular.
Yeah, the NPM survey, I think, had it even higher than that.
Yeah, it's just like, people love it.
Yeah, I think the tipping point has kind of been reached.
Again, now that we don't have an official NPM representative, I want to remind everybody that the NPM survey is super biased.
Yeah.
Beyond belief. I think 95% of JavaScript developers, I don't want to say excluded, but they're one step away from participating.
Yeah.
So TypeScript is happening in like first world bubble of Node users, definitely, but
yeah. That's fair, and I think that brings up 2 points. So like one, like we should try to get Rebecca on this call so we do have a representative from NPM, and two, well, I was just going to say, like, even if maybe that survey skewed, like you can't argue with the fact that there is a lot of transpiled code on the registry. Yeah,
transpilation is everywhere.
Yeah,
and it's a bigger problem. But my pet project is packaging that will require transpilation. Minimizers, transpilers, Babel, etc. I'm just very confused why TypeScript doesn't have a virtual machine, because like my other project is Julia, which is it's like if TypeScript happened to Python, and what Julia is able to do is boost performance by a ridiculous amount by using types. So aside.
Well, this is kind of like, this is what Dino is doing. Maybe Dino will eventually get some traction, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, isn't that the TypeScript VM?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's still what I wanted to say beside using NPM people, maybe core should have a minimal NPM built in. That's an interesting idea, instead of packaging NPM with its developers. Like something really simple that can, that's more, I was thinking something similar to NPM CI, something that can eat a package lock and just download and doesn't do like a ton of the fancy stuff. Sounds like also a very interesting situation, opportunity.
There's already been talk of like decoupling NPM and Node, right?
Yeah. Every time that's like, it comes and it goes, super political.
Yeah.
But regardless, if like one of the things that I love in Node, that at least in Windows, it's a single file, and it just works, and it can do anything except NPM except fetching packages, which is like the first thing that you do.
Isn't this kind of what, like coming from the exact opposite side, isn't this kind of what Tink's about? Because like they do want to be able to lazy install stuff as you do a require, I think it's in their design document, right?
Yeah, but it's like it's two ends of the approach. You can say like things like SSC and Zeit, which say like know everything in advance, package it so you can run it serverless.
Mm-hmm.
There's room for both.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
You still need to have Tink, right, to get that functionality to work. I mean, it'd be amazing if you could just like require something from unpackage or something in Node and it would just work, but
I think that's a nice development or CLI experience. I don't think anybody wants that in production.
We only have 2 minutes left. What should we do? What action items can we take away if we haven't written down a ton already to kind of take with us for the next 3 weeks, do you think?
So we had one for RIMRA. We want to take over the shutil module name and put RIMREF under shutil.rm tree. I think that's like that perfect. Then Chris said we want to scan the R parsing library.
That makes sense. And for source maps, it sounded like you're excited about them, Ian. Do you want me to loop you in on that design document?
Yeah, I would definitely be interested in helping out with that.
Cool. I'm gonna I keep threatening to write it, and it's been way more work getting onboarded than I should have known it would be a ton of work being onboarded, but I've been pretty busy. But excited to start work on that.
Loop me in as well.
Okay, we'll do that, Corey.
I would love to hear about that.
All right, I'll just share the document with a ton of people. I just need to figure out where to publish it.
All right, so I think we need to wrap it up. So thank you, everyone, for attending today. Yeah. And we'll see you again in 3 weeks, unless there's any last minute anything.
No, I'm excited to be more involved because my job's programming again, which is great. Right. Cool.
Those are the best jobs.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome. Take care.
Good luck.
Bye-bye.
Bye.